Today we're talking about data distributions, and we know distribute means how does it look, how is it placed. And there's different ways we can describe how graphs look. You can say that this graph looks like it's skewed to the right, it's symmetric, it's skewed to the left, or it has a U shape to it. So we're going to take our data, we're going to look at the graph, and we're basically describing how the graph looks. So let's look at where we have our skewed right flap. So when we open it up, it tells us data that is skewed right has fewer data points on the right side of the display than the left. So if I'm looking at this bar graph example, here's the left, here's the right. As I go towards the right, I'm getting fewer data points. I'm getting smaller, I'm getting less. It kind of trails off. Sometimes people call it a tail. There's a tail to the right because it's getting smaller as it goes down. And you can look at it, the dot plot as well. They started up high towards the left, and as you went to the right side, it got lower and kind of trailed off. And then the same thing for the box and whisker. Their right whisker is longer, so it's going off towards the right. So if I was looking at this bar graph and I was trying to describe to you how it looked, I would say that this data is kind of skewed right. It starts off tall towards the left, and then as it goes to the right, it gets less. Let's look at symmetric. Now there's two types of symmetric, but this first one says bell-shaped. And it says that data that is symmetrical, it kind of has, they call it a bell shape, has its highest point in the center with mirror images of data points on either side. And when we look at the example, we'll see what that means. So it said that our center is at the highest point. So here's our middle, here's our center, our median, and it's high. And then both sides are going down equally the same. That's why they call it, it's like a mirror image. This side to the right goes down the same as this side to the left goes down. That would say our data is symmetrical because I could cut it in half and it's going to look the same on either side. Same thing for the dot plot in the box and whisker. If I cut it in half, remember symmetric means it's exactly the same on both sides. If I cut it in half, both sides of my graph look exactly the same. So that's what we would say. This graph looks very symmetrical. If something was skewed left, if my graph is skewed left, it means that the data that is skewed left has fewer data points on the left side of the display than the right side. So it's the opposite of skewed right. So if something is skewed left, it means it gets smaller as it goes down to the left. It kind of trails off, so we start high on the right side, but then it goes down towards the left. So it is skewed left. Again, you could describe this dot plot and the box and whisker plot the same way because as I go to the left of my graph, it's getting smaller or longer. And then we have something that's U-shaped, and you could probably guess your graph would look somewhat like a U. This data is also symmetrical, and it has its lowest point in the center with mirror images of data points on either side. So this is the opposite of the bell shape. So this time, the middle of your graph is at the lowest point, and both sides are going up the same way. We can still cut it in half, it's still symmetrical, and when I cut it in half, both sides of the graph are going to look exactly the same. So we started low in the center, and then we go up. So if I asked you, what does this graph show, what does it look like, you can say, well, it's symmetrical, it's low in the center, and then both of the edges go up at the same rate. So instead of just saying I have some small bars and some medium bars and then they go up, we would use our mathematical vocabulary and say that that's a U-shaped curve. Or something, if we go back to the skewed left graph, instead of saying, well, you got small and went big, well, there's a term for that, and we say that that's skewed left. So the most common ones would be skewed left or skewed right. Just remember, skewed left means you have a tail to the left, and if you're skewed right, you get smaller as you go to the right.